The night it all began. It was supposed to be just another quiet night. Daniel was driving home from work. Same road, same music, same routine. The kind of night that slips by unnoticed. But then the flashing lights appeared in his rearview mirror, red and blue, sudden, jarring. His heart jumped just a little. He checked his speed, perfectly legal, seatbelt on, nothing unusual. But as the patrol car pulled up closer, Daniel's gut twisted. That wasn't just any cop. It was Detective Mark Raines, his brother-in-law, the golden child of Sarah's family, decorated, respected, dangerous in the way quiet thunder is. And suddenly, a cold realization set in. This traffic stop? It wasn't about traffic. Mark didn't approach like a concerned officer. He didn't flash authority. He didn't radiate anger. He walked up slowly, like he had all the time in the world, like this moment had been rehearsed in his mind 100 times. His hand rested casually on his belt. His badge glinted in the moonlight. But it was the look on his face that sent a chill down Daniel's spine. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't professionalism. It was a smile, a smug, quiet smile. The kind of smile someone wears when they're not enforcing the law, they're enforcing a message. Mark leaned in toward the window, didn't say hello, didn't ask for license and registration. He just stared for a beat and whispered with a tilt of his head, "Step out of the car, Daniel." And in that silence, Daniel knew this wasn't about justice. This was about control. Daniel stepped out of the car, slow, deliberate. He didn't protest. He didn't ask why, because deep down he already knew. Mark turned him around, hands on the hood. No backup, no witness, only the cold metal and the heavier silence. The search began methodical, too perfect, as if Mark had done this 100 times before. And then, with a theatrical flair, Mark reached into the passenger side door pocket and pulled out a tiny plastic baggie. Inside, white powder. Daniel froze. His mouth opened, but no words came. He had never seen that bag, not once, but Mark didn't care. He held it up right in front of Daniel's face, and with a smirk that could cut glass, he leaned in and whispered just loud enough for the body cam to catch, "I always knew you were this kind of guy." Daniel looked around. No witnesses, no wife, no voice to say, "That's not him." In that moment, he wasn't a man anymore. He was a target. The cold metal of the cuffs clicked shut around Daniel's wrists. It wasn't the sound that hurt. It was the silence that followed. Because when he turned his head, there she was, Sarah, his wife, his partner, the woman he shared a home, a bed, and dreams with. She was standing next to Mark, not yelling, not confused, not even surprised. Her arms were crossed. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes fixed on the ground as if this entire moment was just inevitable. Daniel waited for her to say something, anything. "This isn't right. Mark, stop. He's innocent." But she said nothing, not a word, not a breath. She didn't move toward him. She didn't ask why. She just stood there, like she already knew. And in that instant, something inside Daniel shattered. Not because he was arrested, not because he was framed, but because the woman he loved had already chosen a side, and it wasn't his. Sitting alone in the cold, dim cell, Daniel's mind drifted back. He remembered the subtle cracks he ignored before, the things he brushed off as nothing. Late at night, he'd hear Mark's phone ring, quiet, almost secretive, and Sarah would answer, voice low, words clipped. Conversations cut short the moment Daniel entered the room. He recalled the night Sarah locked her phone tight, pressing her thumb firmly on the screen as if to keep something hidden. He thought it was just privacy, but now he wasn't so sure. And then there were the whispered comments from her father. Things like, "Sometimes a man needs to be taught his place. You can't let men get away with disrespect." Daniel had dismissed those words as old-fashioned. Now he realized they were instructions. Orders wrapped in a father's voice sent straight to Sarah's ears. The pieces fit together now. He had been surrounded by silence and secrets all along, and the walls were closing in. In that cold, lonely cell, it hit Daniel like a wave. Everything he had brushed off, every strange look, every secret phone call, every whispered warning, it wasn't coincidence. It was a script, a play, carefully written, and he was the villain, not by accident, but by design. He wasn't just a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was their scapegoat, the perfect sacrifice to protect a family's pride. The weight of the truth pressed down on him, a bitter, suffocating weight. He felt powerless, trapped in a story he never wanted to be part of. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a small flame flickered. Because villains can be unmasked, and even the darkest plays can have a twist. When Daniel was finally handed the phone in that cold jail cell, most would have reached for a lawyer. Most would have begged for bail. But Daniel did something different, something colder, something sharper. He dialed one number not to save himself, but to set a trap. With one calm call, he triggered what's called a dead man switch. In an instant, every piece of evidence he had painstakingly gathered from hidden videos to secret recordings to incriminating documents was automatically sent to his lawyer, his closest friends, and a trusted digital forensic expert. It was a silent signal, a message that said, "If I don't call back, this goes public." Daniel wasn't just playing defense, he was preparing to strike. Long before the flashing lights and the cuffs, Daniel had felt something was off. Not just a hunch, a quiet warning. Months before the arrest, he started watching, listening, collecting. He installed hidden cameras throughout the house and the garage, capturing everything that happened when he wasn't around. He monitored phone calls, tracking numbers and suspicious patterns. In Sarah's car, he placed discreet audio recorders, just in case. And he didn't stop there. Daniel hired a digital forensic expert to dig into Mark's past. Examining his career partner's financial records, even sealed police reports. Piece by piece, the puzzle came together. Every secret, every lie. Daniel wasn't just a victim. He was a silent observer, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. Daniel held every card, every secret, every damning piece of evidence, but he didn't use them, not yet. Instead, he let the world see him as the quiet, broken man, the man who didn't fight back, the man they thought they could break. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't lash out. He waited, because true strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the silence before the storm. And Daniel was preparing his storm. The courtroom showdown begins. Daniel was led into the courtroom wearing the standard orange prison jumpsuit. His hands were shackled, his steps heavy. Every eye in the room followed him, but none with sympathy. At the front row sat Sarah and Mark, side by side. Their faces unreadable, cold as stone. Sarah's eyes avoided Daniel's. Mark's smirk barely concealed his satisfaction. The air was thick with tension, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Daniel took a deep breath. This was no longer just a fight for his freedom. It was a battle for truth, dignity, and justice. Daniel stood calmly as the judge's eyes scanned him. He lifted a small USB drive from his pocket. "Your Honor." Daniel's voice was steady. "I respectfully submit this as evidence." The courtroom fell into a heavy silence. The prosecutor's face tightened. The judge nodded and gave the go-ahead. The bailiff took the USB and plugged it into the court system. Suddenly, the large screen flickered to life. Videos began to play, secret recordings, body cam footage, and internal police documents, all exposing the dark truth. Whispers started to ripple through the room. This was the moment the story changed. The courtroom erupted. Sarah's voice sliced through the silence. "You said you deleted that!" Her scream echoed with panic and desperation. Mark lunged forward toward Daniel, his face twisted with rage. But before he could reach him, two bailiffs sprang into action, pinning him down. Chaos exploded. Sarah was cuffed on the spot, charged with obstruction of justice. The judge's gavel hammered down, demanding order, but the damage was done. Word spread fast. Sarah's father was exposed for hiding evidence. Within hours, he lost his seat on the committee. The truth had shattered their empire. Daniel stood still. No celebration, no shouts, just a quiet smile. He was finally free. Mark Raines wasn't just a disgraced cop anymore. He was now facing multiple felony charges. From planting evidence to abuse of power to forging official documents, the list was long and damning. 6 old cases once swept under the rug were reopened and scrutinized, each one revealing more lies, more manipulation, more shattered lives. Mark's reputation, once untouchable, was now in ruins, and the justice system was finally catching up. Sarah's fall was swift and brutal. She pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice, receiving a suspended sentence. But the punishment went far beyond the courtroom. Her family's political influence shattered overnight, positions lost. Allies turned away. The community that once praised them now rejected them outright. News outlets tore the story apart, headlines blasting her name, uncovering every secret, every lie, every betrayal. Sarah's world collapsed, not with a bang, but with the cold sting of disgrace. A new beginning. Daniel walked out of the courthouse a free man. No cuffs, no charges, his record wiped clean. He didn't celebrate loudly. There was no grand announcement. Instead, he packed his life into a few bags and left the city behind. A fresh start awaited him, a chance to rebuild, to heal, to live on his own terms. His past was not erased, but it no longer defined him. Daniel was free. Daniel looked into the camera and said, "I don't hate them. They expected me to scream, to lash out, to break, but I didn't. I watched, I recorded, and I let the truth shine. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't anger or noise, it's patience, silence, and the power to wait for the right moment. I didn't win by fighting fire with fire. I won by lighting the darkness." Daniel spoke quietly. "I didn't win by fighting with fists or anger. I won because I was prepared, because I stayed sharp, because I stayed true to myself." He paused, then looked directly into the lens and said, "They wanted to teach me a lesson, but in the end, I taught them who I truly was." It wasn't about revenge. It was about truth. And the power that comes when you never give up. Daniel's story teaches us that silence is not weakness. Sometimes it's the calm before the storm. Family isn't always a safe place. Sometimes betrayal comes from those closest to us. No one stands above the truth. Justice has a way of finding its way even through darkness. These truths aren't easy to accept, but they are powerful to live by. Daniel walked away from the ruins, not with hatred, not with revenge. He looked back one last time and said, "I didn't burn them. They lit the fire. I just let it spread." There was no need for anger, no need for violence. Sometimes the best justice is to rise above the flames. Daniel was free, and that freedom was his true victory. A message to you. If you are hurting, don't scream, don't lash out. Watch, prepare, and when the time is right, bring the truth to the table, because sometimes the quietest voice carries the heaviest weight. Remember Daniel's story. Let it remind you of the power in patience, clarity, and courage. Life often tests us not with loud battles, but with quiet wars we must face within. This story teaches us that true strength lies not in anger or noise, but in patience, preparation, and clarity. Betrayal can come from the closest people, but we hold the power to rise by watching, learning, and waiting for the right moment to let the truth be heard. Never underestimate the power of silence and wisdom in overcoming life's darkest challenges. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Whispers of Life for more powerful stories that inspire and empower. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of truth.